after 200 years of resistance, came to an end on 15th August 1947. India's freedom was a result of uprisings, rebellions, and intense political activities. Looking back on the epic saga of this struggle, what touches us is the valiant fight put up by the people in the face of unparalleled cruelty and oppression unleashed by the most powerful colonial power of the day, the British.
In the world's chronicles of freedom struggle, India is unique because it is the only country in the world to have gained independence through a peaceful struggle. People who participated in the struggle belonged to various schools of thought, which included sannyasis and saints,
yogis and fakirs,
spiritual and religious leaders,
social reformers,
educationalists,
advocates and pleaders,
physicians and surgeons,
scholars and intellectuals,
authors and journalists,
playwrights and men of letters,
industrialists and businessmen,
career civil servants and soldiers,
artisans,
peasants
and laborers. Despite the differences in their approaches and the methods of resistance to the foreign rule, they were all united in their desire to secure independence for their motherland, India.
Almost everyone gets a letter once in a while and spares a few moments to look at the colorful postage stamps affixed on them. The impact is natural and immediate. Little wonder then that postage stamps are used to communicate messages and to propagate themes of national and international relevance. The Department of Indian Posts and Telegraph, in keeping with their significance as effective communicators, brings out stamps sparingly and selectively after due deliberation. Honoring heroes and highlighting significant themes and recording them for posterity through bringing out philatelic material has been a venture that has not been applauded sufficiently by the people of the times. This documentary is a beacon of light on the great work of an entire nation, India, through a very minor piece of material, the Indian postage stamp.
The history of India's struggle for freedom is traced back to the first war of independence, the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857. However, serious bitterness to British rule began with the victory of East India Company over Siraj-ud-Dawla, the Nawab of Bengal, at the Battle of Plassey in 1757.
Stamps on subjects connected with the struggle for freedom were being issued off and on since independence. The onset of Independence Day was philatelically commemorated with a special cancellation, Jai Hind. The greeting, Jai Hind, also figured on the first 3 stamps issued by Free India. These stamps depicted the national flag, the Ashoka lion emblem, and an aircraft soaring high among the clouds. It was only on 15th August 1948 that a set of 4 stamps, the first such set of Free India, was issued on Mahatma Gandhi, who is also the first freedom fighter to be portrayed on Indian stamps. Subsequently, other personalities and themes continued to figure on Indian stamps.
Vande Mataram, the national song of India, shares the pride of place with the national anthem. The original version of Vande Mataram appeared as a song sung by rebel sannyasis in Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's novel Anandamath. Chatterjee, the seer poet, occupies the most sacred place in the history of India's struggle for freedom for this national song. The song of the sannyasis became the battle cry of freedom fighters all over India. Rabindranath Tagore set it to music, and it soon attracted the wrath of the rulers. Beatings, lashes, and jail sentences followed, but it only provoked repetitions of the song.
Tipu Sultan was perhaps the only Indian ruler to have clearly understood the ultimate aim of British policy. Naturally, Tipu opposed the imperialistic designs and became the most frightening rival for the British. He fought valiantly and preferred death to dishonor. With the Treaty of Mangalore, he made an honorable peace with the Nizam, yet he could not rest in peace. When the British formed an alliance with the Nizam and invaded Tipu's kingdom, Tipu fought bravely and was finally overthrown to death.
Number 1446, Sepoy Mangal Pandey of the 5th Company, 34th Native Infantry, with a good service record and deeply religious, fired the fatal bullet which marked the beginning of the great uprising of 1857. The shot fired at Barakpur resounded all over the country. 26-year-old Mangal Pandey was disturbed by the court-martial of Jamadar Saligram Singh for refusing to use the greased cartridge in the gun supplied by East India Company to the Indian sepoys. It was rumored that the fat used on the cover of the bullets was made from cow or pig fat. The soldiers had to rip off these covers with their teeth before firing. This was against their religious sentiments. Moreover, the native soldiers were unfairly dealt with and treated with arrogance. Mangal Pandey could not resist firing in protest. He was court-martialed and was sent to the gallows. Mangal Pandey, calm and relaxed, walked into the pages of history, a martyr to a noble cause.
Rani Lakshmibai, fondly called Manu, was born in a Maharashtrian Brahmin family. Manu was married to Raja Gangadhar Rao of Jhansi and became Rani Lakshmibai. The Raja died childless. The East India Company, despite an assurance given before the Raja's death, did not permit the adopted child to the throne and annexed his kingdom. Rani Lakshmibai found it hard to bear this humiliation. Stoutly opposing the British expansionist policies with regard to Indian states, Lakshmibai was among the principal organizers of the 1857 uprising. She actively led the Jhansi troops against the British army. The English general Hugh Ross regarded her as the woman who was the only man among the rebels, because she demonstrated a rare organizing capacity with military leadership, valor, and indomitable courage.
Kumar Singh was the epitome of the spirit of liberty and unparalleled courage, with the will to resist injustice under any circumstances. Babu Kumar Singh was nearly 80 and in failing health when he was called upon to take up arms. He played a major role in the First War of Independence of 1857. The great warrior he was, he gave a good fight and harried British forces for nearly a year and remained invincible till the end.
The last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, had his authority confined to the four walls of the Red Fort by the machinations of East India Company. The East India Company made him a mock emperor with only a throne and no power to rule. Following the outbreak of revolt in Meerut, the Indian troops proclaimed him the Emperor of Hindustan. What followed was his deposition, imprisonment, trial by military court, and exile to Rangoon. A man of aesthetic temperament, Bahadur Shah was a sensitive poet who had adopted Zafar as a poetic sobriquet. Before his death in Rangoon, he lamented the fact that he will not be buried in his homeland, Hindustan, what we today know as India.
Swami Vivekananda was an Indian Hindu monk and a key figure in the introduction of the Indian philosophies of Vedanta and Yoga to the Western world. He is credited with raising interfaith awareness, bringing Hinduism to the status of a major world religion during the late 19th century. He was a major force in the revival of Hinduism and contributed to the concept of nationalism in colonial India. Vivekananda founded the Ramakrishna Mutt and the Ramakrishna Mission. He is perhaps best known for his inspiring speech at the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago, which began thus: Sisters and Brothers of America. In India, Vivekananda is regarded as a patriotic saint, and his birthday is celebrated as National Youth Day.
The champion of liberty and reforms in India, rightly called the father of Indian Renaissance, as well as the prophet of Indian nationalism, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, was a scholar, writer, linguist, and a social and religious reformer. Ram Mohan Roy established the Atmiya Sabha in 1814 and the Brahma Samaj in 1828. He was among the founders of the Indian press and actively propagated his ideas for all-round reforms in society. It was due to his untiring efforts that the practice of sati was prohibited in 1829. Sati, the Indian custom, which forced a widow to jump into her husband's funeral pyre, was a cruel and inhuman practice, mercilessly practiced against Indian widows, sometimes barely past their infancy. An enlightened thinker, Rajaji welcomed the progressive Western ideas and education. The first constitutional agitator in the country, he was the most progressive political activist of his time.
A profound Vedic scholar, spiritual leader, and a seeker of truth, Swami Dayananda Saraswati was a great social reformer who hated sham religious appearances, moral cowardice, mental inertia, and social degradation. He tried to invigorate the Hindu society through the Arya Samaj. Laying great stress on truth and purity, he worked hard to remove social evils and promote education.
Born in a Mahar family, Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar, realized quite early in life that the deprived and the depressed have to help themselves by getting education, by organizing themselves, and by agitating for their dues. He said, "Nobody can remove our grievances as well as we can. Political power could not be the panacea for the ills of the depressed classes." Dr. Ambedkar stood for a united, self-governing Indian community with constitutional safeguards for the depressed classes. He could accept socialism only with religious and social equality. He played a leading part in the framing of the Indian Constitution. Dr. Ambedkar embraced Buddhism on 14th October 1956 and continued to crusade for social revolution till his death on 6th December 1956.
Regarded by Gandhiji as his spiritual son and his best and most trusted lieutenant, Vinayak Narahari Bhave was one of the moving spirits behind the Nagpur flag satyagraha. Later, Gandhiji sent him to Kerala for the Harijan temple entry satyagraha. He had also participated in the salt satyagraha and was jailed. Subsequently, Vinoba initiated social reforms through Bhudan and Sarvodaya movements.
Rabindranath Tagore, popularly known as Gurudev, was the central force behind writings and literary productions that led to cultural renaissance and nationalistic resurgence in the India of the time. Very early in his literary career, he embarked on a phase of constructive nationalism through his contributions to Sadhana and other journals. Tagoreji also advocated widespread use of mother tongue as a medium of education and described self-help and self-respect as the backbone of Swadeshism. When the partition of Bengal was announced, his protests were extremely strong. After the Jallianwala Bagh outrage, he flung back his knighthood at the Raj with the contempt he felt for the actions of the British government. He told the English governor, "I wish to stand shorn of all special distinctions by the side of my countrymen, Indians." Rabindranath Tagore is credited with the national anthem of Free India. In fact, he is the only person in the world to have authored the national anthem of two countries, India and Bangladesh.
A born poet and a patriot, Subramanya Bharati was greatly moved by the struggle for independence. A Tamil Pandit, he was also accomplished in Sanskrit and Hindi. Bharati was greatly influenced by Sri Aurobindo and V.V.S. Iyer, and later by Mahatma Gandhi. To symbolize the spirit of national unity, he adopted the turban, which was popularly worn by the Sikh of northern India. He was arrested for his nationalistic activities. He inspired people with his poems like Panchali Shabadam, which was an allegory of Bharat Mata.
The Nightingale of India, Sarojini Naidu, was a renowned poetess who gave effective expression to India's nationalism. A passionate bard of patriotism, she was closely associated with Mahatma Gandhi and Indian National Congress. Recurring incarcerations injured her health, but her courage was ever invincible. Besides being a poet and a freedom fighter, she was a great champion of communal unity.
One of the best representatives of the cultural renaissance in literature and fine arts, Vallathol Narayana Menon, was basically a poet. His poetic career extended from the classical Malayalam tradition to modern age of social protest. His poetry stirred the patriotic fervor of the freedom fighters. He had a deep commitment to the nationalistic cause. He was responsible for giving a new lease of life to Kathakali and Mohiniyattam through Kerala Kalamandalam.
Belonging to a family from Kashmir, tracing its descent to the Sapru branch of Kashmiri Brahmins, Muhammad Iqbal could never forget his genealogy and referred with pride to his Brahminical origin. He said, "Look well at me, for in India you will not find another man of Brahmin descent that is versed in the mysteries of Room and Tabriz." This great philosopher-poet composed a beautiful song extolling the glory of India. Sare jahan se acha, Hindustán hamara. The song was and still is extremely popular as one of the simplest and most touching national songs. Mahatma Ji too had admired this song and wanted the poet to become the Vice Chancellor of the Jamia Millia Islamia, which was founded as part of the national movement. This song, Sare Jahan Se Acha, was sung to mark the dawn of freedom at the stroke of midnight on 15th August 1947 in the Central Hall of the Constituent Assembly.
Dr. Zakir Hussain was only 23 and studying at the MAO College at Aligarh when Gandhiji visited the institution and gave a call for the non-cooperation movement. A great educationist, inspired by the Mahatma, he founded an institution which later came to be known as Jamia Millia Islamia. At the age of 29, he was made Jamia's Vice Chancellor.
Originally a physicist, Jagdish Chandra Bose crossed over the frontiers of physics to become a botanist, to work in the field of plant physiology. He was so much ahead of his time that precise evaluation of his work was not possible during his lifetime. A staunch nationalist, Jagdish Chandra Bose fought the exploitative, discriminatory practices pursued by the British. He refused to accept the institutionalized difference in the salaries of British teachers and Indians for performing the same task. He won his case after a hard fight. In a letter to Rabindranath Tagore, Bose had written on the 12th of February in the year 1902, he remarked, "I have at last come to appreciate our national greatness. If I were to take birth 100 times, I would always like to be born in Hindustan." He has exhorted his countrymen with this word: be an Indian first. Make that part of your religion. Outgrow provincialism. Try to think in terms of the vast continent of India. In the new India, there will be no Punjabis, no Marathas, no Bengalis. We are all going to be Hindustanis.
The Jallianwala Bagh massacre goes down in history as indisputably the worst political crime of the 20th century. That fateful day of Baisakhi, 13th April 1919, a meeting had been called at the Jallianwala Bagh, enclosed on all sides with only one entrance. Amritsar's city administration under Brigadier General Dyer had already clamped a ban on meetings and made indiscriminate arrests. Thousands, including villagers from the surrounding areas, had gathered there unaware of the ban. Dyer surrounded the meeting place with armed personnel, including armored workers. Without any warning, a rapid series of gunfire started on the completely peaceful and helpless crowd consisting of Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs, continuing till ammunition ran out. In 10 minutes, 1,650 rounds were fired, resulting in 1,560 casualties.
Sri Aurobindo, who later became a Mahayogi, was once considered by the British to be the most dangerous revolutionary in India. He has authored a number of philosophical and spiritual works, principally The Life Divine, Essay on the Gita, The Synthesis of Yoga, and Savitri.
Bhagat Singh was an intellectual giant, a man of sound principles, and a revolutionary. He formed the Hindustan Socialist Republican Army with the help of daring comrades from Punjab, UP, Bihar, and Bengal. While leading a peaceful demonstration against the Simon Commission, Lala Lajpat Roy was hit by a police officer and later died. The Hindustan Socialist Republican Army decided to avenge the death, and the police officer concerned was killed in broad daylight. On 8th April 1929, Bhagat Singh and Badukeshwar Dutt threw bombs in the Central Assembly to warn the government. They surrendered immediately and explained their action. The blast, he said, was to make the deaf heart. Bhagat Singh was hanged on 23rd March 1931. His actions and the final sacrifice did much to kindle the fire of nationalism in the country.
Chandrasekhar Azad, born as Chandrasekhar Tiwari, was attracted to the non-cooperation movement of 1920-21. While in his early teens, he participated in the agitation and was arrested and tried. He showed extraordinary defiance in the court and was awarded the harsh punishment of 15 lashes. Azad joined the Hindustan Socialistic Republican Army and was also involved in the Kakori conspiracy, the Saunders shooting at Lahore, and the Second Lahore conspiracy. Betrayed by an associate, he was surrounded by the police at the Alfred Park in Allahabad on 27 February 1931. He was severely injured in the shootout, and he used his last bullet to end his life rather than be taken by the police.
An ornithologist of international stature and the author of the first book on Indian birds, Hume in 1885 established the Indian National Congress, and in the same year he donated his collection of 82,000 birds and eggs to London's Museum of Natural History. After serving in the Indian Civil Service for 33 years, Hume retired in 1882. Feeling that India was truly in extreme danger of a most terrible revolution, he founded the Indian National Congress with the blessings of the government.
Dada Bhai Nauroji, popularly known as the Grand Old Man of India, was among the founders of the Congress. He presided over the Lahore session of the Congress in 1893. An elected member of the British Parliament, he ably represented India's case for responsible government and the fact of her economic exploitation before the world.
A great nationalist and freedom fighter, Gopal Krishna Gokhale became Gandhiji's preceptor and historically his precursor. He became the Secretary of the Indian National Congress in 1895 and presided over its session in 1905. He was a constitutionalist known for his moderation flavored with courage and adaptability. He did missionary work in the field of education and founded the Servants of India Society for the service of India.
Surendranath Banerjee was among those who laid the foundation of the Congress. A leading statesman, he kindled the fire of protest against the unreasonable actions of the British government in India. A great speaker and journalist, he edited the Bengali and held a chair in English literature at a Calcutta college.
Lal, Bal, Pal. Lala Lajpat Roy, Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Bipin Chandra Pal were a triumvirate of assertive nationalists who changed the political discourse of the independence movement. Lala Lajpat Roy joined the Indian National Congress in 1888, but he continued his association with other parties. Political emancipation of the country was his ruling passion. With Tilak and Bipin Chandra Pal, he formed the core of the extremist group in Congress. A respected leader of Punjab, he was felled by the blows of the police while leading a procession against the Simon Commission in 1928.
Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak, known world over for his words, "Swaraj is my birthright and I shall attain it." With keen insight in the working of the popular mind, Tilak revived the Ganapati festival in 1893 with patriotic songs and speeches to create nationalistic awareness. Tilak's newspapers Kesari and Maratha were the harbingers of national consciousness. The British regarded him as the father of Indian unrest. His trial on charges of sedition and transportation to Mandalay aroused countrywide interest and unrest and imparted great momentum to the Indian struggle against the British.
In the stormy episode of the earliest phase of freedom struggle, Bipin Chandra Pal was an eminent leader of the extremist school of Indian National Congress. He was a strong supporter of boycott, Swadeshi and full freedom.
Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, a flourishing criminal lawyer, he gave up his lucrative practice to serve the people through Gujarat Sabha in 1915. His contact with Gandhiji brought him to the forefront of the Indian freedom struggle. A veteran of the Kheda Satyagraha, the Nagpur Flag Satyagraha, and the Borsad Punitive Tax Satyagraha, Vallabhbhai Patel emerged as an indefatigable campaigner during the Bardoli Satyagraha. It was the women of Bardoli, who often outnumbered the men during the movement, who gave him the title of Sardar.
Dr. Rajendra Prasad was the force behind the Champaran Satyagraha. He was the first president of Free India and the only person to bear the honor of occupying the president's chair for 2 consecutive terms in 1950 and 57.
Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, popularly called Badshah Khan and Frontier Gandhi, was a leading family belonging to the Mohammedsai Pathan tribe. He was a man of great courage and simple habits, a devout Muslim who had equal regard for all other religions. Abdul Ghaffar Khan had his early education at home and was later sent to Aligarh for higher studies. Abdul Ghaffar Khan plunged into the agitation against the Rowlatt Bills in 1919, and he played a leading role in the Khilafat agitation. He spent about 14 years in jail during this period.
Born in a small village of Calicut district in Kerala, K. Kelappan acquired an abiding interest in social service and higher values of life. When Mahatma Gandhi gave his call for boycott of the British, Kelappan gave up his studies and decided to dedicate his life in the service of his motherland. Since the people of Kerala came to understand Gandhiji and his programs essentially through Kelappan, he was popularly known as Kerala Gandhi.
Abdul Kalam Azad, a staunch nationalist and a freedom fighter. He was an Indian scholar and a senior political leader of the Indian independence movement. Following India's independence, he became the first Minister of Education. Abdul Kalam Azad is commonly remembered as Maulana Azad. The word Maulana is a honorific meaning which implies learned man. He had adopted the word Azad, implying free, as his pen name. Azadji's contribution to establishing the Education Foundation in India is recognized by celebrating his birthday as National Education Day in India.
Lal Bahadur Shastri entered the freedom struggle at Mahatma Gandhi's call and suffered imprisonment. On release, he entered Kashi Vidyapith and came under the influence of Dr. Bhagavan Das. Shastri's life was full of sacrifice and devotion to the nation, and he died in the cause of peace in January 1966.
Eminent as a lawyer, eminent as a speaker, and in the first rank as a political leader, Motilal Nehru was a distinguished member of the Home Rule League and subsequently founded the Swaraj Party with C.R. Das. His constitutionalism and moderation gradually gave way to militant non-cooperation under the influence of Mahatma Gandhi.
V.K. Krishna Menon was an Indian nationalist, diplomat and statesman described as the second most powerful man in India by his ally and intimate friend Jawaharlal Nehru. In the wake of independence, as a very powerful minister in the cabinet, Menon emerged as engineer and spokesman for India's foreign policy. Noted for his eloquence, brilliance and forceful persona, Menon remains an enigmatic and controversial figure in the history of India's freedom struggle.
Starting as an illiterate, self-effacing and traditional Hindu wife, Kasturba Gandhi took great care of her husband Gandhi with his campaign marches and fasts. It is no mean achievement that she also plunged into the freedom movements like non-cooperation and civil disobedience campaigns. The heavy strain of her activities took its toll and she died in Yerwada prison. Gandhiji paid a tribute to his wife by stating that he had learned the lesson of non-violence from his wife Kasturba.
Affectionately known as Rajaji, Chakravarti Rajagopalachari was an ardent patriot, great social reformer, incisive thinker, eminent literator, and a moral giant. He was one of the earliest to join Gandhiji in the civil disobedience and became the first Indian Governor General.
A selfless and dedicated freedom fighter, K. Kamaraj had an in-depth knowledge of social, economic and political situation in the country. He was an able organizer and a constructive worker who went to prison several times during the course of the national struggle. Kamaraj was an important leader of the Congress and a member of the Constituent Assembly.
The apostle of truth and non-violence, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was the greatest figure in India's freedom struggle. Mahatma Gandhi's greatest contribution to the freedom struggle was in taking the nationalistic movement to the masses and in removing the fear of authority from the minds of the people despite being called the half-naked fakir. He succeeded in creating large-scale social, economic and political awareness in the country and tried to liberate the people from the Western influences to make them self-reliant and Swadeshi-oriented. He fell to an assassin's bullets on 30th January 1948. Mahatma Gandhi has been honored by the world with the issue of a large number of stamps. India issued the first set of 4 stamps on the Mahatma on 15th August 1948. These were the only stamps to be printed outside the country. Gandhiji happens to be the first foreigner to be printed on a British stamp. Quite a few countries have issued stamps on him. While there are 33 Indian stamps on which Mahatma Gandhi figures, the number of such stamps in the world may be well over 300.
A freedom fighter who spent long years behind bars in British jails, Jawaharlal Nehru is regarded as the most prominent disciple and spiritual successor of Mahatma Gandhi. An agnostic and a liberal thinker, an idealist and a visionary, he was totally at ease in the Western milieu. Nehru was basically an Indian, as the worshipper of Mother India, who was regarded as the last British Viceroy by Malcolm Muggeridge. A valiant fighter for human values and democratic rights, Nehru was almost always at the center of the freedom movement. He provided the intellectual rationale and the driving force around which the struggle for freedom unfolded.
The Prince of Patriots, Netaji occupies a preeminent place in India's freedom struggle. He formed the forward bloc. After a dramatic escape from house arrest, he reached Europe and then East Asia to take over the leadership of Azad Hind Force, which later came to be known as Indian National Army. After proclaiming the provisional government of Azad Hind, he led his troops to liberate India. Clement Attlee, the then Prime Minister of Britain, attributed the quick decision to grant independence to India thanks to the forces caused by the activities of Netaji and the INA rather than to any other causes. Netaji was reported dead in a plane crash.
A staunch nationalist, Jayaprakash Narayan, plunged into the freedom struggle immediately on his return from the United States of America in 1929. He was arrested and jailed many times. And it was during one of his incarcerations that he organized the Congress Socialist Party. During the Quit India movement, Jayaprakash Narayan escaped from the prison to organize anti-British Azad Dastan. A gifted theoretician, Narayan laid the foundation for different revolutionary parties and pleaded for total revolution to achieve the freedom for India.
India has just concluded more than 3 scores as an independent nation. The freedom struggle is a saga of epic dimensions. India's confrontation with foreign rule has been extraordinarily unique. The land of the Bhagavad Gita, Buddha and Nanak has been witness to the longest struggle to rid its bondage history has ever known, a battle that has been known more for ahimsa and satyagraha than for spilling of blood. It was a struggle that brought down the mightiest of empires to its knees without wielding the sword.
Unique as it is, the Indian freedom struggle brought together the largest heterogeneity of people, ideas, ideals and ideologies to a single platform, a single battle cry and a single object, Purna Swaraj, the birthright. Whichever part of the land one travelled in those days, bliss was it to be a part of that renaissance. Nowhere had the world witnessed the convergence of social, economic, political, religious and intellectual forces in a non-violent mass, heading towards the freedom of the motherland, India.
This epic saga has been told, sung and shown in an assortment of ways, each time adding to the flavor,
each time enriching and enthralling the audience,
matching their expectations with those of the great Indian epics.
The compilation of India's freedom struggle on Indian postage stamps brings together factual accounts pieced together from government records and publications, particularly the archives of the National Philatelic Museum, New Delhi, covering a total of 406 postage stamps in both the definitive and special commemorative categories. This, in itself, forms a unique medium of study and information.